Hey ratbags, I'm back again with another top 5. Today we're taking a look at the top 5 OP weapons in Grounded. Now I put these choices on myself and then you guys voted for it. 3,600 of you, in fact, one of the biggest votes we've had so far. There's some great weapons in Grounded, and now that you can upgrade almost any of them in any different way you want, you can really make most weapons really useful. But there are still some weapons that are just so OP. Once you start getting these, Grounded becomes way too easy. As ever, if you want to decide the future of these votes, make sure you tune into the community tab mostly on Mondays and see the video up later on that week. The next one I'm going to be doing is the most annoying or the most hated creatures in Grounded. So number 5, with 6% of the vote, it's the Termite Axe. I love this bad boy, and yes, there's an argument I could have put the antlion sword here instead, but let me try and convince you guys. This is a super OP weapon. Yes, technically it's a tool, but when you factor in you can get it so early in the game, it really does make it massively useful. In fact, grabbing this can almost be as easy as grabbing a tier 2 axe, and it's recommended that you could even skip the tier 2 axe altogether. As long as you've got patience and you've got enough preparation, head over to the woodpile and you can grab this bad boy by killing a bunch of termite soldiers and spend some time taking out some of the upper yard bugs. You're going to need plenty of tough gunk to craft it also. You only do 3 damage with this, 1.5 stun and 3.5 speed, so it's really the speed that makes up for the little damage it does. But when you start combining it with the mutation for chopping, as well as the ability to hold a shield, the Termite Axe fully comes into its own. The benefit of also having a tier 3 item early as well means you can get so many of the resources you'll need later. Burr, wood splinters and lint. You can really speed up the process of the game by getting this in the early days. It was the go-to weapon when we did the Peeper event. So many streamers and tubers went for this purposely because they just knew it was one of the easiest weapons to get early. You don't need to cook anything, so you don't need the oven. So truly, that's what makes it stand out for me, and that's why I put it in a list. As I said, the damage type is chopping, and there are a fair few creatures that are resistant to it, I'm not going to lie. In fact, only the bee, the bombardier beetle, mosquito and wolf spider are actually weak, but its speed really makes up for that. As long as you've got a high decent stamina build, and it does mean one more inventory space for more resources. You can also craft it into whatever you want by applying whatever elemental damage type to it, meaning it's super versatile as long as you put the time into it once you've got it. But I guess that negatives of it not being strictly a weapon means it's deserving of its place of number 5 with 6% of the vote. Number 4 was the Salt Morning Star, not far ahead with 7% of the vote. Another one that relatively you can get the recipe for early, but whether or not you'll actually be able to craft it is a different matter. It's definitely got its plus points. Again, a one-handed weapon means you can always have your shield handy with you. The recipes for crafting it are 2 salt globs, 1 gum nugget and 3 roly-poly parts. So as soon as you've got the oven, maybe not too hard to get hold of. That said, you do have to spend 2,500 of them precious science points on the recipe, but it's a lot of work to actually craft it. You may be able to get the recipe by cheesing the sandbox and jumping into the boat fairly early at night time, but you're still going to obviously need the oven as well as the recipe to go ahead and craft the globs, which means a trip up to the picnic table to grab that too. So maybe that's why it's voted number 4. Its damage is 2.5, its stun is 7.5 and its speed is 3.5. So clearly you're using this to get yourself out of trouble or take on enemies while they're slumbering. With that saltiness equipped, you'll be taking on and defeating easily all the termites, as well as all the robots, not to mention antlions, black ops beetles and diving bell spiders. So a fantastic weapon for mid to late game, and once you've unlocked it, it really does come into its own. You voted it number 4, and personally I really love the look of this. It's definitely one of my favourite looking weapons. Number 3 with 12% of the vote was the Club of the Mother Demon. Obviously one of the hardest weapons to also get, unsurprising then that it's at number 3. Despite it being the most powerful weapon in the game, it does 6 damage, 6 stun and has a speed of 0.5. where it doesn't come with any inbuilt damage modifier, so it's got no extra busting and it doesn't have any elemental damage types either. Some players view that as a plus point, and absolutely, if you've got the time and the patience to go and kill the Broodmother over and over again, you can create a whole batch of these. It's one of the few OP weapons that you can make completely into spicy, fresh, salty if you really want. But no doubt about it, that's a formidable feat, defeating the Broodmother even once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, so that you can craft each of one every type is truly a test of a proper grounded grinder. So it may be the strongest weapon in the game, but without that bonus modifier and the fact it has generic, does reduce its overall usability. And that can make a huge difference when you're deciding what weapons to use, like the Mint Mace or the Assault Morningstar. You're going to need 2 Broodmother Fangs, 2 Broodmother Chunks and 1 Broodmother Venom to make this bad boy. Or should I say bad mum? I still think this is a fantastic weapon though, hence why it's in the top 3. At number 2, with 16% of the vote, it's the Mint Mallet. What? Mint Mallet? Yes, Mint Mallet. That's what it used to be called before. Alright, it's now called the Mint Mace. Only the OG grounded players will remember. And they'll remember that this weapon was the OG beast of all time. You could craft it super easily just by getting some mints, nothing else needed before more recipes were added, and obviously we had to start crafting the globs in the oven. And it wrecked and dominated, easily the best weapon in the game for a long time. It's still obviously a formidable weapon, and that's why you guys voted it as number 2. It is tougher to get now. You have to beat the assistant manager to get access to the chip. And then yes, you're going to have to make sure you've got plenty of globs, but still the flower petals are super easy to get hold of, and silk rope's not exactly that hard either. So even if you manage to grab it and you've got all the resources, you're going to spend another 2,500 science points with Burgle to actually unlock it fully. Once you've got it, it will lay waste to infected creatures, ladybugs, mosquitoes, stink bugs, bees, bombardier beetles, dust mites, green shield bug, and the generic, which is good for a good handful of creatures as well. So absolutely one of the most powerful weapons you can get. With 5 damage, 6 stun and 0.5 speed, it is a great weapon. If there were only more creatures that took more damage against generic, then honestly I think this could still be a case as being number 1. But it's not. The number 1 weapon you guys voted was, of course, the Cortana, with 58% of the vote, absolutely smashing it and absolutely deserved. Needing spicy globs as well as charcoal, it's a real tough one to craft early on. So yes, you're more than likely going to need antlion armour before even getting this bad boy. I can see why it's number 1, it's absolutely one of my favourite weapons. The look of it, the feel, 4.5 damage, 0 stun but 3.5 speed. Despite being a two-handed weapon, it really does move pretty quickly. Sure, it doesn't have any stun capabilities whatsoever, but the damage is higher than most other weapons too. In terms of creatures weak to slashing, antlion, bees, diamond bell spiders, the hedge broodmother of course, infected larvae, infected mites, weevils, mosquitoes and wolf spiders. Lots of mid to end game creatures there pretty much take a huge amount of damage. That said, it's also got a huge amount of creatures that are resistant to slashing, but with that speed, that high damage, it really will do a lot. The fact is though, so many of the creatures in Grounded are weak to spicy. All of the robots, all of the spiders, all of the ants, as well as roly-polies. So it really does make it a weapon you want at all times. And of course the best part, it glows in the dark. Literally every time I pull this bad boy out, I start doing lightsaber noises. I didn't expect this to be voted in as such overwhelmingly the best. I did think that maybe the Broodmother Club would give it a bit more of a run for its money, but it is just an OP weapon, and once you get it I don't think you'll be carrying too much. If only this was a one-handed weapon, can you imagine it with a shield? But there we go, you voted, huge amount, 58% of the vote, Cortana as the best weapon in Grounded. Agree, disagree, pop your comments down below. Give us some top tips on combat and what combinations you like. And as I said, check out the next one, which is going to be the most annoying or the worst creatures in Grounded. Until next time, ratbags, laters.